Welcome back, everyone. Kevin Carpenter, CPP Events, and I am here with Braden. We're getting ready for C++ on C, 23rd to the 25th of June, workshops on the 26th and 27th. And I keep repeating this, but we got Walter Brown, Jason Turner, Matoush, all your favorite workshops. If you want to do a workshop, this is the place to come and do it. And so, Braden, welcome. First time doing an interview with you. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's very good to see you, Kevin.
So, to give a little background, Braden and I met our first time when I was volunteer coordinator at cpplusplus now, and Braden came down. And I have to laugh because, I do these interviews for fun, but I remember you coming up to me saying, "I watched an interview," and I don't get that often. And so I'm like, "Right on!" And now it's funny because the next year you were speaking at C++ now, which to me that is, that's a feat. C++ now is academic. What was your talk on then?
So my talk in 2024 was called Unit Testing and Expression Template Library in C++20, which was about developing compile time unit tests for a passion project that I've been working on for the past number of years. And I was so passionate about it that I just wrote this, abstract that I was like, I need to propose this to a conference. And then I did. So it was unit testing at compile time.
And so, if you haven't been to C++ now, and this is about C++ on C, but if you haven't been there, it's a very, we will say, the audience is very involved. So did you have a lot of interaction, when you were there?
I did, and I loved it. I thought it
That's
was
cool.
great. For me, I feel like it actually takes the pressure off being able to have that back and forth with the audience. It feels more casual. I am not
Yeah.
necessarily the expert in the room, and so the pressure's kind of off. If I have a question during my talk, I can ask the audience. It's like nothing else.
It is funny you say that because when I was first giving talks, that was part that one of my first talks was at CPPCon, and that is the part that it took me a few years to learn when giving a talk. Like when I get up on stage, it's like this is more my experience now than going up on stage feeling like here's what I'm imparting because I know the right way to do it. It's like
Yeah.
and especially in software development, right? There's just so many different ways to do something. So that's cool. I'm glad that's what your experience was.
Yeah,
So
and I think this one at C++ on C is going to be interesting because I have so far only spoken at C++ now. And so now the pressure will be on that I can't have that constant audience interaction. So it'll be a different experience.
it will be, but I was interviewing Teamer today, and even Teamer pointed out, the thing that's great about C++ on C is it fits this perfect middle of conferences. And you help volunteer at C++ North, and so I have not been to C++ North, but I imagine you have a similar thing there where it's like, so C++ now is the size of 150, and CPP Con is the size of like 800. And so Teamer was like, C++ on C is perfect because the size of it, you're looking at just under 300 people, and so you really get this sense of community. It's like you can meet everyone, you can talk to everyone, and it's not so intimidating that you're lost in it. So
Yeah,
I'm expecting you're going to have a great experience speaking.
I think it'll be great. I'm really excited.
So to back up a little bit, Braden got his engineering degree, mechanical engineering, right? Because
Yeah,
you like puzzles. And then
yes, I
he
do.
turned to COVID into C++.
Yeah, I started just learning some C++ while I was finishing up my mechanical engineering degree. There was a project that I was working on that had to do with creating a Celtic knot random procedural generator.
Okay.
And I developed it in Python and it was really slow. And I thought, well, what's faster than Python? C++, I'll figure something out. So I started learning WX widgets with the help of some online tutorials. And then,
Oh, wow.
looking up some particulars about C++. See, again, I knew nothing. I thought the ampersands were really, really freaking me out. Um, no, that was one of the first thoughts I had. I didn't
Oh,
really know
yeah.
what was going on. And then I start, looking at these tutorials, and then I come across conference talks. And then I'm watching conference talks. And because,
Mhm.
there were lockdowns and I was just sort of, doing school from my bedroom,
Right.
um, between lectures and, I won't say during lectures, but, I'm, I'm
Always
watching
focused
these.
on the lecture. Absolutely. I hear
Exactly,
you.
exactly. I
Yes.
was I was watching these conference talks, and it got to a point where I was watching 6 a day, maybe at some time 8 a day, and I was like writing this project, and I was starting on a few other projects, and I just became obsessed with the C++ language, all the while telling everyone in my life, no, I could never work in software. Like I couldn't sit behind a computer all day. I want to actually be out there, on the factory floor dealing with like mechanical engineering things. Um, and then I got an internship doing C++
Mhm.
through an online career fair, just from talking with someone. Yeah, I like C++.
Right on.
Oh, we do C++
Yeah.
on the team, sure. And I thought, okay, I'll postpone getting a mechanical engineering job for the next 4 months while I take this internship. This internship that's meant for students, but I had just graduated. Um, and yeah, that turned into a full-time job, and I stayed there for 3 years. So
Right on.
I now do C++ professionally. So
And you spend your nights working on fun projects like parser combinators, and you've been involved
yes,
with C++ community and ISO C++ committee for Canada as a representative. That's pretty cool.
yeah, I joined WG21 about a year and a half ago now, coming on 2 years. It's been a good time.
Nice. So your talk at C++ on C, the pattern matching we already have. So it's
Yeah,
interesting because when I first read the title, I do too much data processing. So my mind went straight to regex. But you're
right.
doing type deduction, and I was joking with you before this, like, man, I understand it, but I am not a template person. So like you're saying, since C++ 98 we've had it. So tell me
Yeah.
a bit about your exploration into type deduction.
Well, I thought a lot of these things like overload resolution, type deduction, template specialization matching, all of these sorts of pattern matching that we have built into the language, a lot of us know this kind of stuff intuitively. We know what works, we
Mhm.
know what the result
Right.
is most of the time. But if we need
Yep.
to get down into the nitty gritty details, what are those details? And I just
Yeah.
became curious about that sort of stuff, and then it uh, turned into a talk.
It's funny
Yeah,
you mentioned the. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you mentioned
no,
the overloading, and it's like, those are the things that I do every day. And I've done a little bit of template work, as I've mentioned in other interviews where, I work on credit card processing. So to make a
right.
template for a particular type of credit card, or such like that. But so, C++ 11 editions, with like stood forward, what do you find, about the type deductions and stood forward that's been tricky?
What I found tricky, I'm going to see if I can describe this without showing any code and just using my words here.
The tough part.
Yeah, the type argument deduction for a forwarding reference is
Hmm.
different from what I actually thought it was. And I only discovered this within the past year. And again, I've been doing C professionally for, I mean, okay, only 4 years, but
Right.
I do a lot of template heavy code in my spare time. I write expression templates and that kind of stuff. And yet, doing forwarding, I did not know what the actual type was that got deduced.
Okay.
I really didn't. I thought that when, again, I'll try to see if I can just do this with my words.
Yeah.
When you're deducing an L value, when you're deducing an L value reference type,
Hmm.
the actual type T that gets deduced is an L value reference type. And when the argument is an R value reference, I assumed that the actual type T is also an R value reference type because that would make sense. That would be symmetric.
Right.
And I found that that's not the case. It's actually just a value type. So
Okay.
if the function argument is an int ref, that means
Hmm.
that the T is just int. It's not
Okay.
itself also int ref.
Yep.
And that uh, set me back like emotionally, like I was like, I thought I knew things and now I realize I don't. And it was actually that was the impetus for this talk in the first place when I started exploring all this stuff, and then it just spiraled out of control into this talk. So
So how do you think concepts from C++20 is going to play into this?
ooh, yeah. I mean, there are some things that involve concepts, but funny enough, very little of my talk has to do with anything past C++17. Um, I do mention constraints in one place,
Hmm.
but it's kind of orthogonal,
Okay.
um, in the sense that the constraints allow certain functions, certain function overloads to be removed from the viable possibilities from the overload set. Um, but other than that, they don't really participate very much. I would have expected there to be a lot more, but there isn't really.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, to your point where you're like, most of the stuff that you're doing is up to C++ 17. And likewise, since it started all the way back to C++98,
Yeah.
a lot of backwards compatibility and it applies to the range of standards that we have then. Yes.
Yeah, and even going back and reading the C++98 standard, which I will note, the document was published 6 months before my birth, which is quite interesting. Yeah, just weird to read a document where the wording is exactly the same then as it is today,
Yeah.
and yet this document is quite old from my perspective.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool to see these different paragraphs that I'm comparing between the current standard draft and the
Yep.
C++98 standard, and to read, oh look, this paragraph is exactly the same. Like,
Yeah.
wow, these words have been codified for so long. It's a cool historical dive. I enjoyed it.
That's cool. So this is your first time to C++ on C. So your first time
Yes.
to London and your first time to Folkestone. Yes.
Yeah, I've never been to the UK before. I'm very excited.
Okay, so to go over a couple of things, which I know you already know, but just for anyone watching, especially if you're coming from outside the UK, you have to do your ETA. And there's been a note made about this on the C++ on C website. Definitely check it out. Um, Jason Turner also did a great video log about getting to Folkestone from London Heathrow. And so if you haven't done it, I love it. It's a beautiful journey. Coming from America where we have to drive 6 hours to get to Vegas, or at least I do, to be able to take the tube from London Heathrow over to St. Pancras to then hop on a high speed train that, does what 100 miles per hour and you're down to Folkestone in an hour. And then Folkestone is such a walkable place. I'm excited for you to come see it. Like it was just a beautiful experience my first time.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's going to be amazing, and I mean it's a similar situation here. I live in a city that is unbelievably remote from
Yep.
most other cities. It's weird for me to think that you can even live in a place where you could drive, an hour and get to another city because it's not like that where I'm from. Um, and yeah, just being able to being able to get from London to Folkestone in an hour and a half. Yeah, can't believe it.
So I have to hit you with something totally off the wall because you're Canadian and because I've
Yes.
never got to ask this question in an interview. Do you know Gord Downey? Do you know who I'm talking about when I say that
No,
name?
I don't. I feel like I've heard the name before, but I don't.
The Tragically Hip?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
embarrassing.
favorite
Actually,
band. Loved them forever. And it's like,
yeah.
I,
No, they're great. I forgot the guy's name. Yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, and to be fair, kind of like with the C++ standard, I mean, they're a Canadian, legend as a band. Like of all the,
yeah,
I mean, a lot of great people from Canada when it comes to artists, without a doubt. But
yeah.
when it,
My era is more Justin Bieber, but yes.
yes, yes, exactly. Same with my daughter. But I appreciate you giving me some play for the Tragically Hip because I just wanted to bring them up. Not that that has
Yeah, no, they're
anything to
great.
do with C++ on C. Looking forward to everybody coming June 23rd to the 25th. If you don't have tickets, hop over to the website, grab them now, and look forward to a beautiful time. Especially if you do the dinner, you stare out at the across the channel at France and hang out and chat with everyone. And so, Braden, thank you for your time today, and I look forward to
Thank you
seeing
so
you
much,
there.
Kevin. Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Bye bye.